Thank you for watching, and today I'm going to be talking about an article that I recently posted on the We the Govern site here. This is what it looks like, and it's about the Convention of States and the concerns that I have that the Convention of States movement currently and what it represents threats to our Constitution as well as to Donald Trump's administration. And I go into a lot of details. It's a really long article, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but I want to just discuss why I posted this and what kind of drew my attention to the subject. Now, this really is an issue that came up a couple years ago when I worked at the Freedom Foundation, and some of the the movement for a Convention of States is actually not new. It's been around periodically. You saw quite a bit of effort in America in the late 1800s, early 1900s for movements for holding a Convention of States to do things like eliminate polygamy, basically ban alcohol. There were all kinds of different ideas that had come up back in the day. Usually they petered out because they weren't able to get enough states to sign on to it. But this recent movement, the one that we're really talking about today, has started a while ago with basically this effort to that then really started under the Obama administration, where there's a lot of good conservative, great people who were recognizing all these weaknesses associated with the under the Obama administration and just the abuses of the big government. You really saw Breitbart kind of exposing stuff. You had all the Tea Party coming out. All this stuff was going on, and I actually met with some of the people who were really engaged in the early stages of the Convention of States, and they came and met with me when I was at the Freedom Foundation, and I remember meeting down the lobby, and it's been 12 years, I think now. It's been quite a while since those early meetings. But I remember my concerns that I raised at the time were essentially that if you open the door, this kind of Pandora's box, I think, to potentially changing our Constitution, that you're delusional to think that the left wouldn't jump in and create a runaway convention. I mean, after all, the original American convention that created the U.S. Constitution in the first place, it was a runaway convention. And frankly, we lucked out. I mean, it was, I support the U.S. Constitution quite strongly. I mean, we were very fortunate that it worked out the way that it did. But remember, that original Constitutional Convention was actually created, of course, to repeal the Articles of Confederation, which were clearly defective. And it originally required a unanimous decision. But what happened is a couple of the delegates decided they didn't like what was going on, and they bailed out thinking, okay, well, that kills the convention. The mistake that I think people are still making today when they're looking at trying to hold a Convention of States is the essential reality that a runaway convention is very, very possible, if not almost certain. Part of it's just because of the history of the only one that we've had in our country. That was a runaway convention, and we lucked out. It was very fortunate. But we also, at the time, back then, didn't have this abusive left and Soros-funded, unlimited budget movement in our country that they hate the Constitution. They would do anything they could to destroy it and take it away. And what I find is that many people on our side, good conservative friends of mine all over the country, they just don't understand just how crazy and bad the leftists are, especially if you come from a conservative state. You actually have no idea. You don't have any idea what these guys are like, what they're willing to do, how much money they have, their willingness to use bribery, intimidation, threats, extortion, all kinds of things to manipulate the process to get their way. And boy, giving them an opportunity to take down the Constitution, that would be a dream come true for them. And there is no such thing as a limit on the budget that they would place in trying to hurt you and I, and trying to take away our freedoms that we've assumed have basically been enshrined in the Bill of Rights for so long. So my article generally goes through some of the concerns there. I really lay out a scenario that I think is probably fairly close to reality as to what would most likely happen, especially for those who just don't understand Saul Alinsky rules for radicals or the monkey wrench gang or any of the other ideas the left kind of has. I mean, does anybody doubt the left, given an opportunity, would try to get rid of the Second Amendment? I hope you don't have any illusions about that and why that means something on the left. And the challenge and the arrogance I think that we have is this idea that if you open Pandora's box, just exactly how much control do you have over that process? Any convention has the ability to set its own rules. A convention can do that. They do it all the time. And particularly when the only precedent that you have for that convention was a runaway convention, it could happen. Now, I know the arguments about supposedly having conservative, majority-leaning states and that this would be only conservative movements. I love a lot of Mark Levin's liberty amendments that he outlined. I talked about this in the article there. There's a lot of good ideas ideas that existed there in those amendments. But that actually highlights a couple of realistic things, that despite Biden here in his dementia-ridden state on the way out the door pretended or imagined that somehow we had a 28th Amendment, we actually have 27 amendments. Our country and activists just like you and I have been capable of pushing through good amendments to the Constitution, sometimes dumb amendments to the Constitution that get repealed later, but many of them very good and important amendments at the time that were a recognition that there was something that needed to be changed and addressed in our Constitution. Many of us recognize some of the need to put some controls or restraint on the abuse of the big government that we see today. Those of us on the freedom and liberty side, we recognize this restriction and the need to do this. So the amendment process still exists right now, today, as a far safer and more realistic path to take than opening up Pandora's box with the Convention of States. So listen, you don't have to agree with me. That's okay. A lot of my friends don't. This is something that actually divides the conservative movement, and we don't have to hate each other because we don't agree on this one issue. But I challenge you to read this article. I've got it here. It's linked to my website. I'll post it down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me what I'm missing. And I'm happy to open the door to any kind of discussion on this. Good-meaning people. Oftentimes we can disagree about tactics, but I still think that many of these ideas can be put through as an amendment process. I love the attitude about the Convention of States, about showing up and making a difference, but I'm concerned about what this particular scenario would actually look like, particularly now that the left feels beat down, and they will do anything and everything they can possibly get their hands on to stop Trump and to stop and destroy our Constitution. If they could get those two things done at once, which the Convention of States creates the only scenario where they realistically could do that, there's nothing they wouldn't do to get their hands on us and to destroy that opportunity. Even if they couldn't even succeed in the process, but simply create chaos, I think they would do it. Read my article. Tell me what you think. I got a link down below. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, there's a lot of work to do out there as activists. We don't have to look for a secret sauce solution. Sometimes it's just the mundane stuff that tends to add up. That's how you succeed in the end. But it does require you to show up because, as I always say, the future belongs to those who show up.